You ever heard of DB Cooper?
I have no idea who that is.
Do you know who DB Cooper is?
I have no idea.
You ever heard of DB Cooper? What did you say about DB Cooper?
Find that money.
Man jumped out of an airplane, never found his money.
He stole a bunch of money, or supposedly, and jumped out of an airplane.
He jumped out at nighttime too, so there's no telling what was going on in his head right there.
Batshit crazy.
The one time that America was jacked and they don't know who did it.
That's the one time.
Based off the fact that he jumped out of a plane, would you say that he's black or white?
I'll say that he's white.
You think the government has anything to do with it?
Is he a hero?
I don't think anybody's a hero who just takes money like that.
Hero.
I mean, he really was out for the poor man. He lived an American dream. He robbed something. I mean, he did get caught. I think it's pretty awesome, man.
I still go with bank robber, not hero, but that's just me.
Why would he steal the money and never use it? Mushrooms. The government keeps you in the dark and they feed you shit.
Got something to say, you wanted to play, then come running my way and ruin G-status is dead. No, ready to go, about to go in, you already know. Got my instructions, now give me your audience, hand me your mic and I'm ready to blow. One for the money, two for the show, three for everybody who encouraged me to go, get it. We finally did it, I ain't never turning back, shawty. I'm fully committed to my beliefs, I'm committed to the city. I'm about to give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for.
And now, from a QAnon quadruple fortified wine cellar in a compound in the heart of Appalachia, it's the unicorn of the unknown, the mouthpiece of America, the speaker of the secret, and the host of Jimspiracy, Jimmy Dodds.
Welcome to Jimspiracy. I'm your host, James D. Dodds. And I've told you before, the D stands for doggone it, God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. You know, we start every show off. I tell you that when we get in here, he says that when two or more are gathered in my name, there am I. I've told you, I'm here, you're here, so that means he's here. So let's be blessed, all right? So before we get started, and before I get into our DB Cooper thing, let's do some headlines, okay? So let's go ahead and hit that line, hit that theme music for Truth is Stranger Than Something. Hit that intro. Yes, sir. Truth is stranger, man. Don't say I didn't tell you so. But I told you so. And if I had to talk about anything, man, this has been a rough couple of weeks for my guy, brother Joe Biden. Okay? Because Joe, he don't just have to deal with the China and Russia threatening to replay Nagasaki Part 2 on his ass. You know, it's not the fact that Joe is, what is he now, like 89 years old? Okay, y'all do understand that comes out to be like 169 in dog years, right? Okay, y'all cracking jokes about Joe, okay? But Joe done, come on, man, he's 169 years old, but this man done recovered from cancer and COVID twice in a week. Huh? Now, I don't know what's going on, but I think that there could be some side effects to whatever the hell it is that y'all giving Joe, okay? Now, remember, back in the day, Trump was bragging about the cocktail of drugs, the plethora of drugs that his doctor was giving him, okay? Now, somebody want to tell me, just for the sake of just something, somebody want to tell me what the hell they done put in Joe's drink? Cause Joe been looking a little different lately, man. Look at this. Look at this side-by-side pic of Joe. Same day. Look at them eyes. Side by side. Now, this is some real Jimspiracy crap here, y'all. Remember Riker Webb? Remember? Remember the little boy that went into the woods looking like Dennis the Menace and came out looking like Chucky? Somebody want to explain to me what the hell's going on? Because I'm going to tell you, peoples, I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. Listen to me, Joe Biden. The book of James teaches us that man thinks that all in life is poots and giggles until man reaches that point in life that he giggles and poots. I'm worried about you, Joe. See, this is the very reason they tell you, do not take someone else's medication. Seriously. We've all been in that situation at work, and we ask a coworker, my head's killing me. Could you give me a Tylenol, please? We don't want to go to the doctor. We don't want to take off a half day. Just give me a Tylenol. I can finish the day. And your coworker accidentally give you one of her son's psych pills and have you laying her up looking like this. Come on, man. Seriously, man. Have y'all seen this picture of Joe Biden? Somebody look at Joe. Joe's not blinking. Look at Joe looking like a black-eyed kid. I want y'all to right now stop. Start the timer right now. And I want y'all to try to not blink. Don't cheat. Play along. Put the comments in the section and how long you can go without blinking. Remember the don't blink game as a kid? Joe Biden, he was the champ in that one. Oh yeah, by the way, let me ask y'all a question, man. I see the lights is on. I hear music playing. I see cars in the driveway. But somebody tell me something. Is anybody home at Joe's house? See, because I'm going to tell you something. Something done happened to Joe. I think Joe done became an alien or something, because aliens can't do simple things like eat Jell-O or remember to blink. Y'all can call it a Jimspiracy if you want to. I don't care. Say what you want to, but Joe Biden glitched out on us on national TV. Seriously. Whether you realize that or not, that was a real live Mandela effect right there. Do y'all know what the Mandela effect is? I'm going to tell you what the Mandela effect is. Remember the movie Field of Dreams? Okay. Remember in the movie Field of Dreams, they say, or he said, if you build it, they will come. Right? Nope. It said, if you build it, it was in regards to his father. If you build it, he will come. See, even in the Mandela effect, see how they want to take him and he out of it? All right, check that out. Jimspiracy. Also, real quick, tell me this. Y'all do understand that China has threatened to, y'all know that Nancy Pelosi wants to go visit Taiwan, right? Y'all know she wants to go visit Taiwan, and China done threatened to shoot her out the sky. Now, I don't know how I feel about this one. I truly don't know how I feel about this. I have mixed emotions about this. This is kind of like, I don't know, kind of like when my mother-in-law drove my new Cadillac off the cliff. Got mixed emotions about it. Let me ask y'all something, man. If it's that serious, and if China's threatening to blow the plane out, Why wouldn't the Democrats send Donald Trump? Really? Nancy Pelosi, is this what your co-workers think of you? You good with this? They would rather send you than send a little colored girl, Kamaya. Come on, man. Look, she laughing at you. She laughing at you, Nancy. Boo-boo. All jokes aside, Nancy Pelosi, is it really worth you going to Taiwan and getting your hair done? Is it really worth jeopardizing World War III? Seriously? Hey, I got a question for you. How many of you have seen the documentary on Netflix about DB Cooper? Where are you? This thing is it's doing some nice numbers on Netflix. For those of you that don't know, it happened in 1971. A skyjacker jumped from an airplane with $200,000. We have two stars from the show. We have Bruce Smith and Darren Schaefer. And if any of you have watched this, you'll know both of these individuals. They're going to be coming up with us in a minute. We were lucky enough to get two guests because I've got a lot of questions about this. Our Twitter poll for this show for this week is regarding DB Cooper. And the question is just real simple. Is DB Cooper an American folk hero? And as we can clearly see that this option is just running away. He's hands down, head over heels, taking over. Was he an idiot? Or never heard of the guy? Okay. You still have time. Go to give a vote. Let me know what you think. I really hope you run and take a look at the Netflix special and then come back and maybe you'll appreciate this and you can roll with me a little bit. Real quick, we've heard the story. We heard that DB Cooper demanded $200,000 cash. He demanded 4 parachutes. Okay, one of the things I found out about the 4 parachutes was it wasn't actually 4 parachutes. It was 4 parachutes, but it was 2 for the front, 2 for the back. Okay. That's about it. That's about all we really know is that that's what DB Cooper demanded. Okay, nobody ever heard him demand it. It was just said that that's what DB Cooper demanded, and that's about it. Now, to be honest with you, if I just want to put a little stank on it, put a little Jim Spearsy on it, as far as I'm concerned, DB Cooper's Bigfoot. Seriously, ain't nobody ever seen him, has he? But folks in the hills in the woods swear up and down he's exist. So as far as I'm concerned, DB Cooper rates right up there with the Loch Ness Monster and aliens. Okay? Now, that's just my Jim Spearsy. Okay? But here's some facts. Somebody, I don't know who, but someone's been threatening both of our guests, Darren Schaefer and Bruce Smith. Both of them have had physical as well as cyber attacks on them personally, as well as their families. Bruce Smith wrote a book about the FBI's involvement in this case. I thought that was very, very interesting. The hell would the FBI have to do with DB Cooper? Okay. You know, I told you I was in law enforcement. If there's a murder in a home, a man is murdered, the first person you look at is the closest person to him. Okay. In this case, we don't know. All we know is there's a report of a DB Cooper, and they said he looked like this, and that's it. Well, since we don't know what DB Cooper looks like, how in the hell we don't know that DB Cooper didn't just walk off the plane with the money and the other passengers? How do we know that the pilot and the stewardess weren't in on it? Anytime you're having a home invasion is an inside job. Didn't we just say that January 6th was an inside job? I'm just saying, what? Come on, man. And definitely, we're going to talk about this character by the name of Robert Rackshaw. Now, if you watch the Netflix documentary, you're going to hear this name. Let me just save you a little bit of work here about Rackshaw. Rackshaw killed his stepfather. And after he killed his stepfather, he stole an airplane and tried to escape. But y'all still say he's a folk hero. I heard some people call him a petty criminal. Really? Okay. Let me just tell y'all something. I'm just going to be honest with y'all. If Robert Rackstraw, based off of the amount of evidence that was presented against him in this documentary, if he was black, he'd been locked up. They won't let him out. Locked up. They wouldn't let him out. Hey, man, I'm going to be right back with Bruce A. Smith on Jim Spears.
The D.B. Cooper SkyJacking, one of America's greatest mysteries ever. In 1971, a man bought a plane ticket from Portland to Seattle under the name Dan Cooper. He proceeded to quietly hijack the plane with a note and a briefcase bomb. Once the plane landed and he was given his demands, $200,000 and 4 parachutes, the plane took off again. At Cooper's demand, it flew at low altitude for about 20 minutes, then he jumped. Media pandemonium ensued. The mystery and the James Bond-esque daring feat captured the country's imagination. One of the first reports called Dan Cooper D.B. Cooper, and the name has stuck ever since. 51 years later, the case is still unsolved, but not for lack of trying. The FBI investigated for 45 years and finally closed the case as unsolved just a few years ago. But private investigators and internet sleuths continue to break down the story and present their own theories. Interest in the case has had a resurgence due to Netflix's recent documentary, which focused on 2 key plot lines. One of those was about Robert Rackstraw, a Vietnam veteran with parachute training and a criminal record. He's one of the most intriguing suspects because he seemingly teased investigators into thinking it could be him all the way until his dying day in 2019. Netflix also played up a possible connection to a French-Canadian comic book hero. The fictional Dan Cooper was a daring pilot and parasoldier who D.B. Cooper may very well have named himself after. But Netflix merely scraped the surface of the thousands of theories about D.B. Cooper. Tonight, Jim Spearsy will talk to 2 of the most prestigious Cooperites in the country and find out what major elements this intriguing documentary left up in the air.
Hey, we're back with our guest, Bruce Smith, here at Jim Spearsy. I got so carried away with talking to him, I forgot that I had a show to do. Bruce, thank you so much for joining us, sir. How are you?
I'm good. Pleasure to be here.
Now, before I get started, I'm going to have to be honest with you. I'm going to tell you something, because when my producer said, hey, we're going to have Bruce Smith on, I was reluctant to have you on the show because I thought that they was going to be I thought he was talking about Bruce Smith from the Buffalo Bills. And I had no desire to talk to that dude. I'm from Kansas City. I'm born and bred a member of the Kansas City Chiefs. So I'm just glad to know that it's you. It's you, Bruce Smith, and not that Bruce Smith.
I'm the other Bruce Smith, right? There's 2 of us.
Bruce, tell me a little bit about yourself, please.
Yeah.
Oh, you're from New York.
Born and raised. In fact, I'm talking to you from New York this evening because my mother passed away a few weeks ago, and I'm in her home, taking care of business, cleaning it up, working with my sister, putting her ashes in the ground, all of that. So, yeah.
Well, my prayers are with you. Our prayers are with you. And
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, listen, tell me something. You wrote a book DB Cooper, and the FBI. It's a case
Correct.
study of America's unsolved skyjacking. Tell me the significance of the FBI and DB Cooper.
As a case study, I don't think you can fully understand DB Cooper without taking a very hard and long look at the FBI and at least understanding what they did and trying to figure out why they didn't do what they didn't do, how they made decisions, who was involved, who's talking to whom, and who's not talking to whom. So the book is, I'm not anti-FBI and I'm not anti-law enforcement. We need cops. Cops keep us safe. But we need cops to do their job the right way. We need professionals. We need, in the parlance of law enforcement, we need some cops who are grinders, who will really grind out the case, who will talk to eyewitnesses, who will talk to the old hands who were involved on day one. The case is 50 years old, but there are still FBI agents living in Seattle who worked the case on day one. And the guys who have been involved, the case agents who were involved in the last few years, up until then, the FBI closing the case in 2016, never talked to the old hands, never talked to the eyewitnesses, never talked to the principals involved in the case, like the guy who gave the parachutes to Northwest Orient Airlines the night of. You know, these are all principals. You gotta talk to the people
They didn't actually give his name. The guy that built that packed the parachute, I noticed another documentary, didn't actually give his name. They called him something like Gus or Como or something. They didn't actually give his name.
Well, there's two mysteries, and this is part of what I'm by trade. I'm an investigative journalist, and my work writing on newspapers, the Pierce County Dispatch specifically, was the basis of how I got to the fundamentals of the DB Cooper case. And the first thing that became really apparent to me early on is the FBI was saying that a fellow by the name of Earl Cassie was the fellow who provided the parachutes to Northwest Orient. But in reality, it wasn't. That was a deceit. That was a deception. And the question, did the FBI knowingly lie about that? Or were they deceived by Earl Cassie? Because the guy who actually gave the parachutes is a fellow by the name of Norm Hayden. And Norm Hayden is in the FBI records in the early days. So you have to go back and dig into the case to find that. Because the guys who work the case as case agents, FBI agents, weren't reading the paperwork. They were just thinking and reacting to the stories that they were told. It was like tribal lore of one warrior or one chieftain passing down the story to the next guy, to the next guy, through the generations. And after 50 years, they lost track of what the truth is.
Listen, a lot of people haven't seen the Netflix special by Tom Colbert. Okay. Yeah. And I'm going to focus on that for just a moment here, because one of the things that stuck in my mind as I watched this, and believe me, they use the phrase going down the rabbit hole. And I went down the rabbit hole with this thing. But one of the things that stuck in my mind that I didn't quite count on was that the FBI kept sending you all down some wrong paths on more than one occasion. Why? I mean, if you're trying to solve a case, why would you be given bad information?
I can tell you what my speculation is. And if I had to make a bet, with my personal money, here's what I would say to explain the FBI's behavior. I think the FBI, for the past 10 years, easy, has been trying to bury the case, make it go away. And in 2016, when this Robert Rackstraw thing started floating, they could piggyback the FBI, I think, colluded with the History Channel, who signed up and partnered with this Tom Colbert guy to present this Robert Rackstraw scenario that he's a suspect. And the FBI used that documentary.
Do you believe Rackstraw was a suspect? Do you believe?
Hell no. Is he? Oh, he's a suspect. He's a candidate, but is he DB Cooper? Hell no. No.
Okay, that's what I want to know.
Thomas Colbert has done a lot of great things in the investigation, but as Darren says in the Netflix special, Tom Colbert is primarily a salesman and not an investigator. And I think that's what we're really dealing with. Is Tom Colbert is embedded deeply in the Hollywood documentarian world. He's got contacts up the yin-yang. And I think he is able to affect and cast a huge shadow in Hollywood, anyone who wants to make any kind of documentary on DB Cooper. And I think the production company, Falwell 73, who did the actual heavy lifting, and Netflix just gave them money and bought their documentary and slapped their name on it. I think Falwell 73 fell under the spell of Rackstraw. And their primary mission was to create good TV. It was not to solve the case. And I think they accomplished their goal. I think they put a 4-part series up that is substantive. And if you have the patience to see it through, you're going to learn something. But
okay, tell me something, Bruce.
Hold on. Even though I was in it, I almost stopped watching. I almost gave up on it halfway through. I like to see myself. I like to see myself on the screen as much as anybody, probably as much as you, Jimmy.
You do realize that you called Tom Colbert a weird character at some point through this thing. You did just call him a weird character, right? I thought that
that's all I called. If that's all I called him, I got away easy.
Let me ask you a question, Bruce. Okay, because now, based off of your expertise in this case, and especially Rackstraw, because if I followed what that Netflix special said, hey, hot damn it, Rackstraw did it. Okay, so did Rackstraw kill his stepfather?
I believe so. Rackstraw's a bad dude. He was. He's dead now, but.
Okay, but the stewardesses said that DB Cooper was in his mid-40s, right? Correct. And at this time, Rackstraw was 28.
Right.
How? I mean, that doesn't jive with the story. Am I right?
Correct.
Now, let me just throw this out there, just to. Rackstraw also went by the aliases of Wesley Jones. He had a bunch of aliases. And so, did Rackstraw actually work for the government or not?
Well, he was in the military. Okay. But I think what you're alluding to, did he really work for the CIA as a helicopter
was it the CIA pilot? Or the FBI? Your book was the FBI.
You know,
that's come on now. Technically, different organizations.
Technically, Robert Rackstraw worked for Bell Helicopters in Tehran, training the Shah of Iran's guys to fly the new fancy schmancy zoop-de-doo Bell Helicopters. Now, was that under a CIA contract? or is it a cozy relationship between Bell Helicopters and Rackstraw and the CIA? Rackstraw got kicked out of Iran and was being sent back to the United States, and the FBI arrested him in Paris as he was trying to get back to the States. And that's what Colbert makes a big deal of, is like, they had him, they got the guy. And so how come they let him go?
They had him. They also took, he was also in prison. He was in prison for this, but for some reason they let him go.
Well, he was
Right?
in prison for, I'd never known him to be actually imprisoned for the D.B. Cooper case. He's been imprisoned and adjudicated on other charges, like blowing up an armory and forging checks and crashing a plane and filing false aviation, calling an emergency that wasn't really an emergency, and the Coast Guard is looking for him and all of this. He was a bad dude. He was a bad egg. His family really very clearly is absolutely convinced that he killed his stepfather and buried the dude in the driveway. And the dogs kept sitting, waiting for Pop to come back.
Like, he's right here. What the hell y'all want us to do?
Yeah, right. It's like, how could you miss it?
We can't work a shovel. Okay.
Yeah. And Colbert makes a great case saying that the reason why Rackstraw was able to skate on the homicide charge was because Rackstraw had compromised the detectives, the investigating detectives, and the local county sheriffs handling the homicide, because he had stolen their helicopter with their knowledge. So he's illegally flying a sheriff's department helicopter around California with the cops knowing about it, and that kind of blew all of their zeal for prosecuting Airborne Bob, as those of us in the Cooper investigation affectionately have called Rackstraw.
Bruce, tell me this: what happened with your research when you tried to get information regarding Rackstraw from the FBI? What happened?
Well, I didn't go to the FBI directly because the FBI, by the time Rackstraw became public news, the FBI had officially closed the case. But I can tell you what I did do. I went to Thomas Colbert's cold case team that was advocating and assisting Colbert in the investigation of Robert Rackstraw. And these guys are all former cops, detectives, homicide detectives, FBI agents. There's a former assistant director of the FBI that's on this cold case team. And one of the guys, a lot of them were exceptionally hostile to me when I reached out to them. And one guy told me, he threatened me with arrest. He said he was exceptionally hostile, and he told me that I was impeding his investigation of the Robert Rackstraw case and D.B. Cooper, and if I kept asking him questions, that I was going to be arrested. And I said, "Dude, bring it on! Come on! Show me the cuffs. Put them on. Put them on."
Also, let's say this for the people that haven't watched this, haven't watched the Netflix special. You speak of the fact that you came up under attack. You came up under cyber attacks.
Yes.
Now this brings me to my question again. Now, do you think that those were that wasn't just Colbert's people? That wasn't the Cooperites that were corrupting your files and trying to stop your investigation? Was it?
I think it was Cooperites. I went to the FBI about it.
Okay.
The cyber attacks that I experienced started in around 2014 and really hit a peak around 2015. And the FBI was very concerned about what my experiences were. I had files stolen, and some of my emails to a fellow investigator by the name of Galen Cook, who is my personal attorney in addition, my emails to him were stolen and then sent to the FBI office in New York City as if they were coming either from me or from my attorney, Galen. And the FBI directly got in touch with me saying, hello, yo, Mr. Smith, don't send us any more of these emails because we consider it spam. And I'm saying, yo, this is part of the crime. They were stolen from me and sent to you illegally. Welcome to my journey in crime here. And so we really began a partnership. The FBI and I had a partnership in investigating these cyber attacks. It was never solved, as far as I know, but I know that all the cyber attacks that I experienced and that Galen Cook experienced were finished by 2016, by the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. So did they get them? I don't know. I think it's Cooper guys who just decided to go away.
I heard that. And I guess my question would be, if it was an investigation just to find the truth, what's the problem with finding the truth? Why would the Cooperites be upset? Because you're trying to either confirm nor deny the truth. I mean, isn't this all we're trying to get to is the truth here? What am I missing?
Well, intellectually, everyone talks about finding the truth. But unfortunately, and I include myself in this, is everyone's decision making, and everyone's behavior is influenced by their emotions. And one of the emotions that I've observed in others is jealousy and competition and feeling that they're going to lose out. They will lose out their claim to fame, so they need to knock me down and make me less reliable and less credible and less appealing to folks like you, guys who've got the microphone, guys who've got the camera, the media, the documentary people, Hollywood, all of that. It's fun to get a phone call from Hollywood.
I have to tell you, one of my reasons for having you is you represented one of the few people that I thought actually had sense on that shit. You were just very realistic and down to earth. It just didn't seem like you got caught up in the hoopla of it. Let me ask you another question. I'm going to throw another name at you that people don't know, but if you watch the documentary, tell me about Tom Kate. Am I saying his name right? Tom K. Sorry, Tom K. I'm sorry.
Tom K is outstanding. He's a scientist.
And here's my reason for asking, because I saw him on this documentary with Tom Colbert's documentary. He said that the tie contained titanium, high levels of titanium. But I saw him on another documentary, and he said that it contained high levels of pollen. There's a big difference between titanium and pollen.
Well, I think I've worked with Tom for years, and the reality is that Tom found lots of stuff. He has found 100,000 different kinds of particles on the tie, and he's found them using electron microscopes. So he has found the titanium, and he has found pollen, and he's also found bits and pieces of stainless steel and rare earth minerals. And in addition, he's also discovered and the FBI confirms, that there are 4 sources of DNA. Now, I don't know if it's saliva or epithelial cells from a finger that are on the tie, but the tie from DB Cooper has the DNA of 4 different male individuals. Now, who those guys are, we don't know. They're probably FBI agents who handled the tie without, latex gloves. But there's a lot of stuff on the tie. And as Tom points out, he says, nobody ever washes their ties. So in the course of a lifetime or a career, there's going to be a lot of stuff on the tie. And I think that's what's on DB Cooper's tie. And it's a source of great fascination. But boy, talk about going down a rabbit hole. you've got to put on your hiking boots if you're gonna go into the investigation of the tie, because you're gonna have to hike some miles to get to the end of some of those holes.
I was in law enforcement for 17 years. Okay. Sometimes when you just have an item just thrown out like that,
yeah,
how can you be sure that that wasn't planted?
You can't. That adds to the mystery. Welcome to the Cooper Vortex. There is nothing in the case that you can nail down. Nothing is nailed down. As you said in your opening remarks, we're not even sure there was a DB Cooper. Well, I'm sure there was a DB Cooper.
Okay,
I know you believe in the paranormal and ghosts and Bigfoot, and we'll talk about that in future shows. But, I think Cooper was a real human being.
Well, also, hold on. Let me ask you, let me make sure I say this right.
Okay.
What can you tell me about Bob Dayton? Did I say that right?
Well, it's two names for the same person. That picture is
it's two names
Barb.
for the price of one. Go ahead and explain to us about
It's a
Bob.
Cooper, baby. Come on, Barb Dayton is the person that she became when her alter ego, Bobby Dayton, decided to have a sex change operation in 1969. So Bobby became Barb. And it's the same person.
Bobby became Barb following Bobby's extensive career in Vietnam of jumping out of helicopters. Am I right?
He didn't jump out of helicopters, but he worked on ammunition ships and barehandedly killed the VC sapper in Saigon Harbor one night. So he didn't mess around. Okay, he fought with indigenous soldiers in Borneo against the Japanese in World War II. Get this, he jumped ship. The Navy's looking for him
more than once, huh?
Yeah, well, and he decided he wanted to go off into the mountains with the boys who live in the mountains, and wearing the little fig leaf around their genitals, and start to kill Japanese. He says, besides, I'm not going to, spend the rest of the war sailing around on a boat. I'm going to do some serious action. So Bobby was a serious dude, and he decided that he had to become the woman that he knew in his heart he always was. And so in 1969, he convinced the University of Washington Medical School to do the first operation.
Okay. Where did he get the money?
I don't know. Good question.
I'm just asking. Now listen, I want you to check this out, Bruce. I want you to check out something that I did watching a few DB Coopers, and I believe it was Tom's, to where he had a lot of documents, and I'm sure that maybe you saw these documents, and they were talking about actual notes from DB Cooper, right? On one of these notes,
the letters.
and I wasn't. The letters from DB Cooper, and for example, one of these things that he was literally, they said he was toying with authorities. Well, some people will go, well, if he got away with it, why would he toy with authorities? Okay, the B2K killer had gotten away with murder for years and years, but he kept on taunting the Wichita police. I mean, so these psychopaths, they do like to play games with the with the authorities. Am I right about that, or what?
Well, I would agree with you that the people who write the letters are psychopaths who enjoy toying with authorities. The question is, are any of these letters from the actual SkyJacker? And I think in most likelihood, no. I don't think that any of the letters are from DB Cooper, from the real DB Cooper.
Okay,
they're from a wannabe. You have to.
Okay.
You have to
Also,
remember, we have over 900 people have confessed to being DB Cooper. We have a lot of crazy people in this country. They
okay,
want in
that
on
was
the
going to be
action.
one of my questions. That was going to be one of my
Yeah.
questions because one of the notes said that he owned. Where did I go? Where'd you go, Bruce?
I'm here.
Bruce. There you go. Keep going. I'm sorry.
I hear
Lost you
loud,
for a
sir.
second. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What you're saying?
I hear you loud and clear, Jim.
Okay. So basically, if I saw a note that said that from DB Cooper, and this wasn't highlight part, but he said, "I have only 14 months to live." Okay. Well, hell, the way you was smoking cigarettes. I mean, what do you think about that?
I don't think any of the letters come from DB Cooper. It's possible that the fellow that wrote that particular letter only had 14 months to live, but I don't think he stole an airplane.
And he also said that he never had a traffic ticket. Nah, but you blew your stepdad's head off. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Hey, check this out, Bruce.
What?
I have Darren on the other line. Darren Schaefer.
My man. Darren.
Well, hello.
Listen, I'd like to bring you in on this conversation. I want to thank you so much for joining us. I have a different opinion about you on the show. Now, I just really have to tell you because you kind of really came off on Tom kind of rough a little bit. You kind of gave him the business a little bit. What's your thoughts of the whole Tom Colbert work on? First of all, thank you for joining us. You run the DB Cooper podcast. Am I right?
That's correct.
Okay. Hey, and also do me a favor, tilt your camera down just a little bit, just so we can see some more of your beautiful face there. Just tilt it down a little bit. So people, if you really want to follow the DB Cooper story, one of the reasons that we have Darren on here, Darren is also on the Netflix special, and he has at this point, I'm looking like almost like 379,000 downloads regarding this subject. So there's no end. Tell me something, Darren. What's your thoughts of Tom Colbert and this whole piece of work that we just did? I know you're jumping in, but I think I'll just put you in right there.
Well, I think I said it in that Netflix special. At a certain point, he couldn't prove his theory anymore, so he decided to try and sell it at that point. He just seems more interested in documentaries and movies and books than he is about actually solving the case.
I asked Bruce about this, and I heard you say this. You talked about threats that you received. And I asked Bruce, I'm like, come on now, do you think that the Cooperites were the ones? What happened with you and the threats that you received? And I think you also even talked about threats you received on your family. What happened there?
The only real threat I've received is a certain individual threatened to sue me because he wanted his episode taken down. And then I had a different person weirdly threaten that my whole family was going to have their identity stolen. But there's just a few mean players in this game. Everyone else is a great person, especially Bruce.
Well,
Thank you, Darren.
Bruce is a class act right there. I mean, let's be. Tell me this, Darren. What's your thoughts on Robert Rackshaw?
I don't think he can be considered a suspect anymore. He's been eliminated on so many different levels. He doesn't really fit the physical description. He's 20 years younger than what we believe Cooper to be. There's no direct evidence that implicates him. The FBI had him in custody, and I think if there was anything that they could have found that pointed to him as being Cooper, they would have put that forward. But in their opinion, there's no evidence that he's Cooper, and I'm of the opinion.
So Uh, this is for either of you, Bruce or Darren. Are you familiar with the Tom Cruise movie American Made?
No.
Yeah, definitely.
So in other words, the movie Tom Cruise American Made is basically a movie about Tom Cruise flying arms to the Contras, and you couldn't do anything to him about it. He was pretty much a made man, and you couldn't do anything about it. That kind of sounds to me like more of what Robert Rackshaw was in life. He was a real live gringo. Is that kind of accurate?
You want to take this one, Bruce?
Well, that's what Thomas Colbert believes essentially is that Robert Rackstraw was an essential part of the CIA operations, particularly in Iran, and thus was a made man. He's untouchable. My point of view is guys like Robert Rackstraw are a dime a dozen. And if he stole an airplane and threatened to blow up and kill 35 passengers, he should go to jail. And they'll find somebody else to do the dirty work over in Iran for the CIA. I don't think there's any shortage of candidates for the CIA. I think they've got a gazillion guys to pick from. And if they lock up Rackstra, they could have thrown somebody else into the job. No problem. I don't see what made him so valuable.
And that right there was my whole point regarding the FBI and Rackstrom. It was like, if he was, that they would have just terminated him, just like they did what's the guy's name that even introduced him to Rackstrom? Dick, whatever his name was. I mean, believe me,
there's a long line of slimy guys that come on the Rackstraw train. Oh, pick any of them, put them all in jail.
I mean, and that was just kind of the thing. I mean, he was so are we basically saying, nah, he had no FBI, CIA ties? It was just something that was just put out there?
Yes.
Yeah. It's a lame
Tom
excuse.
did that.
I think so, yeah.
Tom did that. I'm about to be upset here now. Hold up, man. Okay,
Jimmy, before you get upset, I gotta poke a little hole in your anger button here. Tom Colbert, for all the crap that he has pulled, has done great work in the DB Cooper investigation, because he put the FBI their feet to the fire, and he got them to start releasing 70,000 pieces of FBI documentation on Cooper. Nobody else was able to do that. Dozens of us have been trying to do that. Colbert was the one. He's the guy who finally got the job done. So I got to bless him for that. Yes. Even though
he does deserve credit for that.
What was that?
Even though he's wrong on Rackstraw, and I don't greatly respect his personal and professional behaviors about how he treats people and how he presented the Rackstraw case, and maybe have been unethical at times, like offering money and trying to buy the story and buy a confession and all of that. I have some strong ethical concerns about that. The bottom line is the bottom line is Colbert has helped the DB Cooper investigation. He's helped me and lots of other journalists and lots of other researchers and investigators.
Okay.
That can't be denied.
Let's go back to this case, because there's a couple of things that you guys please help clear me up on. One, was any of the money ever? I know that there was the money that was found by the kid on the beach, but there was reports that they basically knew the numeric order of the denominations of the bills. Okay. Has any of this money ever circulated? Has it ever shown up anywhere?
The answer is no. I had a gentleman named Arthur Friedberg on my show who is a numismatist, which is a combination of collector and historian of currency. He authored the book U.S. Paper Currency, and his family is responsible for what's referred to as the Friedberg numbering system, which identifies bills. And I asked this guy, is it possible any of this money was ever spent? And he said, I don't remember how much was found, but the idea that you have over $9,020 bills entering circulation and not a single one of them ever comes up in a flagged transaction, he just says to him that doesn't make any sense. In his opinion, none of that money was ever spent, either in the United States or...
Okay. Okay. Or abroad. I mean, because, even though it was 1971, whatever, we had the capabilities to follow that money, to trace that money, if I'm not mistaken. Am I right with that, Bruce?
Well, not exactly. The question is, there are two kinds of economies. We have the black market, and we have the regular economy that people talk about in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. Could Cooper's money have entered the underground economy, the underground black market, the world, the banking systems and the currency exchanges that deal with drug deals, arms deals, sex trafficking, bribery? When dictators need to be paid off, where does that money come from? I don't think it comes from Wells Fargo or Chase Bank. It comes from the more hidden world, the more hidden financial system. And it's rumored, I can't prove it, but it's rumored that up to 30% of all money printed in the world is in the black economy. It's in the dark economy.
Okay. Okay, now we're right back there where we started from again.
That's right, baby. Here we are.
Listen,
put her in gear. Let's go.
Let's go back to the original story of he jumped from a plane. And I've seen a lot of people go back. One of the first questions I said was, hell, somebody go back and jump out of the plane, right? I say that. I haven't seen anybody go back and actually jump out of the plane in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm in those conditions that happened. And what was the temperature that night of him jumping? What was the temperature of him jumping out of a plane? And it was below freezing, wasn't it?
It was 22 degrees on the stairs. So the plane's flying at 10,000 feet. And as Cooper's going down the steps, the staircase of the plane, it was a 727, which is a very unique aircraft. And it had its own internal staircase system. It was 22 degrees. And interestingly enough, because the stairs, he was on at the backside of the stairs, he wasn't affected by any of the wind. The plane is flying at 200 miles an hour. But other people who have actually done the jump, other skyjackers have told me that ironically, there's very little wind as you're walking down the steps. And what you do hear is you hear the engines because they're 20 feet away and they're roaring full blast. And once you jump and you go into the slipstream, then you're going to tumble and the wind is just going to be crazy, crazy. So,
so you're tumbling, it's raining. How do you survive that? That's what I mean, this is what I'm saying. I've seen people imitate the jump in picture perfect conditions, but I'm adding in all of the elements. And like you just said, you talked about the wind. I mean, and even with the parachute that he took, from what I understand, that's not a standard, that you couldn't control that parachute. With that parachute, you went where the wind took you. Okay.
Which is not necessarily a bad thing, because if you're coming down in the dark it's to your advantage to come down relatively straight as opposed to sliding with any kind of speed at an angle. Because if you're going to hit a tree, it's a lot easier just to kind of bump into a few branches on the way down as opposed to slamming into the tree trunk at 20 miles an hour. So there are compelling reasons. The general consensus among skydivers, certainly the ones that I've spoken with, is regardless of whether you're tumbling or the wind or whatever's going on, if you can pull your ripcord, the technology, even back in that day, was good enough that the parachute is going to take over and the air is going to inflate the parachute and you'll be able to get down the ground. Ballpark figure. If Cooper could pull the ripcord, he got to the ground. Okay. He got to the ground okay.
I agree with Bruce on that. The only thing that sort of bugged me about your question was that there was a storm that night. It was raining. I think the ground temperature was something like 43 degrees that night. It wasn't a storm. It was just raining, which is very standard weather for November in the Pacific Northwest. If you live in Nashville and you hear that it's raining, you just picture a storm because that's the rain that you get. In the Pacific Northwest there, it's just sprinkles of rain coming from the sky constantly.
Listen, Bruce, I want to let you go because I've kept you long beyond my time that I said I was going to keep you. I want to thank you. I want to take a couple of minutes here and have a couple of have a few more words with Darren. I want to thank you for just joining us here on Jimspiracy. Thank you. I hope to have you back. I want to talk to you some more about this book because I think that the FBI is not completely just in the scot-free with this, man. I want to
Jimmy,
hear
why
some
would you say
stories
that?
about this.
Yeah.
I want to hear some more about this. I need to know. I need to know, why is the FBI even coming up in a DB Cooper case, man? This case should be open and closed.
We'll talk.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
See you around, Bruce.
See you, Darren. See you down the road.
All right, Darren, let's get back to it.
Let's party.
Now, and listen, you have to understand that my understanding of this case, I'm going by what I've seen, and I'm more so really going by Tom's documentary. And it did kind of, that was the theory of what the weather was and what it was. So what you're saying is that it wasn't impossible for DB Cooper to make that jump at that time. It wasn't anything, because people was like, oh, the weather was horrible. Nah, it was just normal.
The weather was totally normal. It's a typical November day. And like Bruce was saying, I've talked to so many skydivers, recreational, and then a bunch of like military badasses and smoke jumpers. And they tend to be a cocky group in general, but all of them say they could do the jump, no problem.
Well, somebody did it like 2 weeks after this.
Yeah.
I'm right. Somebody did it and said, well, if I would have did it, I would have done it this way. And not only did he do it, but they went to his house and found the money.
Yeah, all of the copycats survived the jump.
I mean, and I guess that's the thing. I mean, so it's definitely not like it couldn't happen. But the other thing, and you tell me this, what about the location? Because from what I see, or was this just Tom's the way he did it in his document? It looked like it was a lot of trees, a lot of forest area.
There's a lot of forest area. There's a lot of forested area, a lot of farmland. And even if you look at this map that we're looking at right now, the idea that he lands in water, first you have to determine what percentage of land under the drop zone is water. What percentage of land is water? That didn't make very much sense, but you get it.
Yes.
So I just don't believe that he landed in water. It's a lot more difficult than on land. If he pulls his chute and lands in a tree, there's a good chance we're going to find at least just the parachute, or maybe him hanging from a parachute in a tree the next morning or within the next few days. But nothing was ever found.
What about the reports of flares? Well, what's his name?
The flares is an interesting one. First of all, there were planes following Flight 305. There were 2 small fighter jets. I'm not an aviation expert, so I'm not going to try and name what they were. And then there was also a helicopter that attempted to fly the flight path for a period of time. And none of those chase planes reported seeing any flares that night. The report of flares, I believe, comes from like one report that a lady saw flares in the area a night or two before or a night after. And I think that's sort of just been conflated with other details in this case. If flares, more people would have seen them.
I mean, even in the location that, and I don't know how well the documentary did in actually showing the location, because we really don't know, but it would seem hard to even find somebody, even if I mean, and I really didn't buy the couple that said that 4 people picked him up and they threw the money away. Why in the hell would you jump out of a plane with $200,000 and then throw it away?
It's an interesting question. There are a couple of suspects that in their theory, they threw the money away. Maybe you're doing it to prove some point, prove you're a badass, whatever it is. I'm not sure.
All right, now, look, I don't know if you heard my opening, but let's just play. Let's just play for a minute. How do we know that there was a DB Cooper and that this wasn't just a complete inside job based off the pilots and the rest of the crew?
That's a great question, and I absolutely hate that theory. There are 2 theories that people are introduced to this case, and they jump to one of these 2 theories. Either A, Cooper never existed, and the flight crew concocted him up and whacked up the money. The other theory is that he never jumped out of the plane. So the theory that he never existed, we have many things that go against that. The ticket agent who filled out the ticket for him saw him. There were people at the airport who saw him, but were just like, yeah, that businessman standing over there. But there was no reason to pay attention to him, so they didn't remember anything about him. Multiple passengers on the plane saw him. And then the last thing I'll say about Cooper not existing and it being an inside job is if you talk to airline personnel that worked in the 60s and early 70s, they all say the exact same thing. It was an amazing job. And they made good money. So for them to split that up, you're at least going to have to involve 6 people splitting that money up, all of them risking jail time, not to mention losing a career that all of them enjoyed. So there's no credibility to that one. I'll touch real quick on Cooper not jumping out of the plane. It's just ridiculous. The plane lands in Reno. The FBI is waiting. They immediately searched the plane with dogs. And I don't know if you've ever been on a plane, Jim, but there isn't a bunch of empty space they're not using. They're using every available inch of that aircraft. There's not a bunch of secret hidey holes for Cooper to escape in.
Okay. All right, let's ask this question. Why would you ask for $200,000 in 20s, which I guess we've said that it was going to add 23 pounds, as opposed to asking for hundreds? I mean, I guess the theory was 20s would be easier to pass, but how big of a difference was that 23 pounds in 20s made if it was done in hundreds, or is that not a factor in this?
It would have been, significantly lighter. It would have been 80% lighter than if he got hundreds. The money he got Seafirst Bank in Seattle had $250,000 set aside where they had all of the serial numbers on microfilm, which was fancy in 71, I guess. And so when he demands $200,000 ransom, he didn't specify the denomination. So they gave him 200,000 out of the 250 that they had already set aside, like for some hijacking or ransom situation. So that's the money he got. I've never seen anywhere where he specified a denomination on the bills.
Okay, and it's no truth to the he specified in American denominations or whatever. There was no
negotiable
truth in that.
American currency.
There you go.
That's the phrase that gets tossed around. And I'm not sure if Cooper said that or if that was a result of the telephone game. He told Tina. Tina told the flight crew. The flight crew then told the air traffic controller. So I'm not sure if that was put in there by someone else as their interpretation or if that was directly what Cooper said.
Okay. Remember I told you in the beginning, I said, now look, you upset me during the Netflix because I'm gonna be honest with you, I was really team Colbert because I felt like, hey man, Tom spent his money. So if he spent his money, he gets to, when you conduct the survey, you get to say what the results are. So I'm not mad at him about that. But I guess one of the things I would like to ask you with this whole thing and what we're talking about, and I don't really know the best way to put this, but what would you say what's the biggest myth going on right here that came from this whole Netflix thing? What's the biggest thing that we missed here that just got lost?
Oh, I would say if you watched it and you thought Rackstraw was a legitimate suspect is the biggest thing. Colbert has got now 2 documentaries produced on Rackstraw. The first one was History Channel's D.B. Cooper Case Closed with a question mark at the end. And then this latest Netflix one. And weirdly, both of these documentaries where he was sort of the starter, the inspiration, or the engine behind, both of them eventually turned into It's Not Rackstraw. And I could just only imagine how frustrating that is for him. Because the History Channel one, the 2 main reporters in that basically end the documentary saying we don't believe it's Rackstraw.
But Rackstraw didn't help himself any. I mean, he played and toyed with the cameras, and I think he loved the publicity of even saying that he was DB Cooper.
Oh, absolutely, he loved it. I 100% I agree. He loved that attention, and even in some of that footage, I'm not sure if it's a journalist or it's part of a deposition, but you see that footage in the documentary where he's standing trial for the murder of his stepfather, but he's still being coy about whether or not he was Cooper. And I think maybe on some level he was hoping that if he could sort of trick the FBI or whoever into some sort of a deal where he could say what he knows about the Cooper case, which probably would have been a lie, that they were lenient on him in that trial. But he wasn't convicted of it anyways, so. But, like Bruce said, like something like 900 people have confessed to this. So one guy being coy about it doesn't mean anything.
Okay. Now, here's where let me take you back to where I said you upset me. I remember what it is now. You didn't Tom laid all of this out for you. He gave you all of these reasons why Rackstraw was DB Cooper, and you didn't believe me. Okay, you didn't believe me, but you believed in the comic book DB Cooper character.
Yes, I am into that.
Now, come on, Darren. Come on, man. Now,
It just
hold
seems
on,
like
wait,
such
wait,
an
no,
insane
wait.
coincidence.
Tom gives you facts. You see that this man has a criminal record. This man's stolen airplanes. This man's killed his stepper. But you don't believe that one, but you'll believe the comic book guy.
I do. I don't believe the author of the comic book was D.B. Cooper or anything like that. But one thing I am very interested in is, did the hijacker choose that name as an homage to the comic book? I've used this example in the documentary, but if I boarded and robbed a train and my ticket, I boarded, rob a train and escape on a skateboard, and my
Tony
ticket
Hawk.
was under the name Tony Hawk, is that a coincidence or an homage?
Right.
The comic predates the SkyJacking.
Okay.
It's just such an interesting coincidence that I can't say that the Skyjacker didn't pick that name on purpose.
Well, I mean, and people don't know, but this is why I keep telling people, you really have to kind of go watch this documentary to find out. But even in this comic book, he does a couple of these things of jumping out of planes, and he's a badass in here. But what I did think was interesting was that the comic book was written in French. Okay, so whoever.
Yep.
Okay, so I thought that, okay, because then there was somebody that said that the French accepted responsibility and said, oh, we're the ones who did this. Okay, I would buy that. But didn't one of the stewardesses say he spoke very politely and he had no accent?
Exactly. No discernible accent. The only thing I'll say about that is, if you're a 30-year-old guy overseas in the military and you're sitting at some waiting room, in the 60s, there weren't cell phones. So you look at what's on the table to read, you don't speak the language, you see a comic book that's in French. You can't read it, but you could sort of go through it and get an idea of what's going on, even though you don't speak the language. So it's possible that there was a U.S. soldier overseas that saw this comic book. I don't know. It could be that the name was just chosen completely at random. Dan is a common name. Cooper is a common last name. It could be a coincidence, but if I had to bet, I would say it's not.
Why has this case not been solved? Why is this the only skyjacking case that hasn't been solved? And before you answer that, isn't there a bit of mystique that this country wants to believe in this maverick, this renegade? I mean, we don't want to catch this guy. We don't want to know who did this. Am I right or wrong?
I think you're right about that. There is a certain element of it being a mystery is a lot more exciting and interesting. Also, it being a mystery, D.B. Cooper gets to be this folk hero. You know, especially in Portland and Seattle, there's sort of this rebellious attitude and spirit. And he definitely fits into that. In this particular crime, he didn't physically hurt anybody. So you don't have to feel guilty about a murder victim, or, you know, he stabbed the pilot or anything like that. But if we do find out exactly who Cooper was, and he has a really terrible past, you know, bunch of armed robbery and 3 different murders, then it goes from him being a folk hero to just him being a criminal real quick. So unless Cooper is like some engineer who had a specific grudge and he pulls this off and never committed any other crime, then he can remain a folk hero. But if he has a checkered past with bad stuff in it, it'll really change the way he's looked at, in my opinion.
Okay. I appreciate everything you've come on and talked to us about. You've set me straight on a few things, but let me just take you back real quick. Let me just throw a Jimspiracy at you. Because I still can't help but notice that Renstraw, or whatever his name is, the Rackstraw, I can't help but notice his military background in explosives, his CIA involvement. It just seems that's the MO of a lot of, I don't want to use the word patsies, but a lot of people that get in, a lot of people that the government likes to use, they all have that same MO. I mean, he fits the exact MO of somebody that would do something this dumb. Am I right, Darren? I mean,
I think he does fit the MO, absolutely. But as far as suspects with conspiracies that are more interesting and more plausible than Rackstraw, I could give you a few. Ted Braden is a name you should absolutely look up. My friend Drew Beeson has a great book on him, Paratrooper of Fortune. He was a super badass commando, MACV-SOG in Vietnam, and then he ends up going AWOL, and he's caught working as a mercenary in the Congo. He's arrested and then released mysteriously. I've spoken to the person at, I believe it was Fort Dix, that he was being held at. And he was like, dude, this guy had people looking out for him way above my pay grade. I didn't ask any questions. I just did what I was told regarding him. Another great conspiracy subject is E. Howard Hunt of the Nixon Watergate plumbers. Okay. He's pushed as a suspect in a book by Nat LaFoque. I think it's D.B. Cooper Examined and Exposed. And the famous picture of him during the Watergate hearings with sunglasses on. And Cooper famously wore sunglasses during that. E. Howard Hunt is a very close match to the physical description of Cooper, way more so than Rackstraw. And E. Howard Hunt also had the ability to plan and pull off something like this, which most Cooper suspects don't.
Okay. We also remember that they said that Lee Harvey Oswald, you know, he also had a few ties and connections too. Okay. So I'm just simply saying, all right, I think it's very, okay. DB Cooper, he's a nobody. He's jumped out of a plane. Well, why does his name keep popping up in the FBI, in the CIA? Why does the man's name keep popping up? He was just a little hoodlum, right? He was just a little small-time criminal, right?
I got an even better one for you. There is one person that I can connect loosely to both the JFK assassination and to the DB Cooper skyjacking, and that's a gentleman by the name of Lyle Cameron, who was outside of the Elsinore Sports Drop Zone. I forget what that place was called. But he has sort of like a weird, super loose involvement in both cases, and also like died in a mysterious plane crash, if I believe.
See? You see how you just did that, Darren? You see, now I keep on telling you that it's more to this story, and you're going, nah, nothing to see here.
Well, there's nothing to see with Rackstraw. There's a lot to see in other DB Cooper suspects.
Oh, I just think that the whole DB story is amazing. And the phrase is going down the rabbit hole. And if you go down this and just look into this story, you will just go and go and go. Darren, thank you so much. The people can tune into your podcast. Tell them where to find your podcast at, Darren.
The Cooper Vortex. You can get it wherever you listen to podcasts at.
And so if you think that you have some ideas, if you think you know who was DB Cooper, if you have an uncle, go, you know, he looked just like my damn uncle that lived right there in Louisiana. You can call Darren, talk to him about it. Darren, thank you so much, sir. I appreciate you. It was an honor to have you on here to, you know, because you are truly, you're just as much an expert in this as anybody else. And I respect and appreciate your opinion in it. Thank you so much, Darren.
Thanks for having me on, Jim. I appreciate it.
Hey, it's been an honor. Thank you. We'll be back with Jim Spiracy. I might even have a little Bible story for you. I'll holler. Yeah. My favorite time of the show. When I get a chance to just grab a little Bible story for you. But listen, before I get started with that. What, Jamil? Okay, I was getting ready to tell a Bible story. Here, come here, man. Come here.
Okay.
Come on in here. Ladies and gentlemen, Jamil Dodds.
Hello.
Jamil, by the way, someone asked about you last week.
Really?
We missed you on the show. Where were you last week?
Just missed my cue.
Huh?
Nothing.
Where were you last week?
In my room.
In your room. Oh, God. You weren't in your room. You went out of town. We didn't see you. Where did you go out of town to?
To my mom's house.
And where is that at, Jamil?
In Georgia.
Okay, guess what? If you give me an answer like that again, you won't be back on this show. What are you doing here? What do you want?
I wanted to tell you a joke.
Okay. What's your joke, man?
Did you hear about the Italian chef?
What? Speaking to the microphone.
Did you hear about what happened to the Italian chef?
Did I hear about what happened to the Italian chef?
Yes.
Call it! Wait a minute. No, I didn't hear about what happened to the Italian chef.
He passed away.
Get the hell out. Get out. That's not good. That's terrible. He passed. Oh, God. All right, let's get to the Bible story. But before I do, let me say this. And that was what I was getting ready to say before I was so rudely interrupted, knocked down, dog-tied, and spit upon by this rude, crude, and downright socially unacceptable little bitty kid. Our last guest, talking about the whole DB Cooper thing, and I appreciate Bruce and Darren, both of them, for coming on. But man, let me just tell y'all something. If you just heard that last segment, you heard me keep on saying, and Bruce wrote a book that talked about Rob Rensberger, whatever his name is, and the FBI. Okay, now we don't know. We're not going to say that he's DB Cooper. But did y'all hear how many times this man's name kept popping up? I mean, didn't Darren just say, did you hear him say that his name was connected to Nixon? To the plumbers of the Nixon Watergate thing? Did you also hear him say that his name was connected to the Kennedy case, the Kennedy assassination? But y'all call him a small-time criminal. Come on, man. That dude was a piece of work. All right, let's get to it. Woo! Hey, man, thank all of y'all for watching the show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for liking. I appreciate all of you. Anyway, let's get to this Bible story, okay? Hey, this Bible story is coming from 2 Chronicles chapter 18. Yes, I said 2 Chronicles chapter 18. I didn't crack no joke or nothing. Okay. Listen, let me just try to set this up for you. Israel was split into two kingdoms. It was about 850 BC, all right? And it was like Judea and Israel. Okay. King Jehoshaphat, he was the rich and powerful ruler of Judea. Okay. And he had repented of idolatry. He spoke out against the ways of the world. Jehoshaphat came into power because he was obedient to the teachings of his father. Okay. And his father was obedient to the teachings of God. Okay, so therefore, God blessed Jehoshaphat for him being obedient. Okay, but here we go. Jehoshaphat made an alliance with Ahab. He's the king of Israel. Okay. Now he knew that Ahab was of the world. He was what you would say, Ahab was about that life, you know. But still, Jehoshaphat was trying to bring peace, you know, and he was trying to do this so much that he allowed his son to marry Ahab's daughter. Okay, so check out what you got. You got Jehoshaphat, who's God's boy. He's not of the world. God has blessed him because he's followed his will. But now you got Ahab, who's of the world. He's about that life. But now since we boys, now since we blood, now since we fam, you know, we won now. Okay. So while at the reception for Jehoshaphat's son and Ahab's daughter, while they was at the reception, the king came up to Jehoshaphat and said, hey, yo, Joe, since we fam now and things, you know, hey, man, why don't you get your boys? I'm going to get my boys, and we going to roll out, and we going to split these fools' scaps back. See, he was talking about going and making a move on the Moabites. Okay? You know, you could say that they was that was the rival gang. He talking about going making moves on them. King Ahab wanted to go to war with the pagan Moabites, and he asked Jehoshaphat to join in. And Jehoshaphat was like, yo, you know, I'm good. I'm good with you. You know, I'm good with it. He said, the only thing you have to do, hey, man, just make sure it's good with God. You make sure it's good with God, I ain't got no problem. We can roll on. And so at this point, this is where the story get good, because Ahab calls his prophets. He calls his boys. He say, hey, man, speak on this. Do you know, what God say about this? And hey, man, that one after another one. They like, yo, man, let's roll, man. Let's roll on these fools. Let's split these scaps back. Let's go after these fools. And Jehoshaphat was like, nah, you got to do a little better than that, man. You got to get me somebody else. I got to get a more genuine, give me a more godly opinion than, you know, these fools gonna say anything you want them to say, man. So finally, Ahab said, all right, man, look, I got one more prophet. His name is Messias. We call him Little Mikey. Everybody liked Little Mike except for Ahab. Ahab did not like Little Mike. He didn't like Little Mike because Little Mike had the unenviable talent of telling the truth. He didn't lie. And Ahab said straight up, I don't want to ask you. He said, every time I ask this dude something, all he do is bring me doom and gloom. This dude is bad luck slap rock. I don't want to ask him nothing. But Jehoshaphat, he insisted. He said, hey, man, give little Mikey the mic, and let's see what he says. And so he asked Mike, say, hey, man, should I do this or not? Mike said, hey, man, you want to roll out on the Moabites, you go right ahead. Go for it. Go for it, sire. And he kind of had that look on his face. All right, now Ahab said, look here. Now, are you saying that just because I've threatened you in the past? Are you just saying that because of what I've told you about never bring me bad news? Or are you really telling me that? I need you to tell me the truth. Little Mike said, the truth? You want the truth? He said, all right, then I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you what I seen. I saw all of your armies scattered like sheep that has lost their shepherd. You see what I mean? You got that? And at that point, Ahab, he looked over at Jehoshaphat and said, see what I told you? Doom and gloom, man. That's why I don't ask this dude nothing. So Jehoshaphat said, what you want to do? He's like, look, man, let's roll. So he's like, okay, if you want to do it, I'm with you. But now before Jehoshaphat left, he said, hey, y'all lock this dude up in prison until I get back. He said, don't y'all feed him nothing but wood. Don't y'all give him nothing but bread and water until I get back. See, little Mikey was smart, Alec. Little Mikey said, I don't guess you heard what I said. God said, if you make it back. Now, y'all see this story. Y'all see what's setting up. Y'all see what's happening here. See, Jehoshaphat done got himself into something he ain't had no business being a part of. But, you know, he a good dude. He gonna roll out anyway. And he's deep. He's deep. Ahab is deep. And they getting ready to roll. But at some point or another, as they get ready to serve this no-knock warrant on the Moabites, they get kind of confused and they have a little ambush and bullets get to flying everywhere. Until finally Jehoshaphat had to say, hey, hold your fire. Hold your fire. Stop. And you know, it's always one. It's always one to want to shoot that last little shot. And one last soldier said, pop. They said that the arrow went through Ahab's, they said it went through the only spot in his armor. I think it's probably about right here. Boy, don't you know that's a sad moment right there? You're like, I ain't never been shot, but it's got to be something when it happened. You'd be like, ooh, he told me this was going to happen. Now, see what I will say this. Ahab had enough. He had pride about him. He wouldn't just retreat. He told his soldiers, he said, post me up in my chariot, make it look like I'm still fighting. Well, that's what they did that afternoon. The fighting went on and it got bad. And Ahab died at sundown. Jehoshaphat and the rest of the men barely got out, barely got away with their lives. When Jehoshaphat got back and told the elders what happened, the elders were very, very upset with Jehoshaphat. They said, why would you do that? After all God's done for you, why would you do that? Why would you put yourself out there like that? Why would you put yourself in danger? And the elders told Jehoshaphat, said, now you're going to have to suffer God's retribution. You God's boy. God got you out of there, but you're going to have to pay for that. And I think that that's something that we need to look at. We need to think about. We need to think about how many times we know right from wrong and we let somebody suck us into doing something dumb. And sometimes God puts us in a situation, God says, hey, you're on your own. I can't do nothing to help you. Look here, man, God's been good to us in life. And if we know that God's been good to us in life, we need to honor that. We need to stop going against what God tells us to do. Stop doing what's wrong just because that's what the world wants us to do. Because, yeah, you might make it out. But you might make it out with just the skin of your teeth. You might make it out barely alive. But God said, be careful what you pray for, because you just might get it. And in this case, it might be the truth.
I'm going in.
Folks don't like that very much. Hey, man, stay prayed up. Thank you for tuning in to Jimspiracy. I'll see you next week. And hey, I love you like play cousins. I'll holler.
Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for.
Yeah, are you not entertained? Ain't this what they tell you hustle for? I'm on my gladiator monologues, Russell Crowe. And honestly, I don't see what the fuss is for. You let your money blow and all we tryna do is sow it. Just so you know, this is Kingdom Biz. No Brooklyn Nets, I think we know who team this is. Come on, come all, and don't forget to bring the kids. And y'all gon' need a different planet just to dream this big. So bring your stacks to the table, and I'ma bring my faith. And at the end of the day, we gon' see who win in this race. And since God is the judge, should probably throw out my case. So do us a favor, get that look off your face. They be like, you spit that fire, got them industry rap. Why you doing that Christian rap? Nobody listen to that. And I reply with a sigh like I'm missing the fact. I'm trying to spread this holy gospel till my Savior get back.
I'm going in one time, these record labels all in my face, trying to forfeit my race. But still I'm going in one time, no matter the opposition I face, staying true to my faith. I'm about to give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Give them what they want, what they need, what they ask for. Well, everything they offer, yeah, I'ma give it back. You can have it, crossing the world on my back, Mr. Atlas. I'm trying to get the people what they lacking. That's why I act a donkey on the track. Hit a passion. Got something to say. You wanted to play, then come running my way and ruin G status is dead. No, ready to go, about to go in. You already know. Got my instructions, now give me your audience, hand me your mic, and I'm ready to blow. One for the money, two for the show, three for everybody who encouraged me to go, get it. We finally did it. I ain't never turning back, shawty. I'm fully committed to my beliefs. I'm committed to the city, committed to the streets. I'm committed till they get it. Now people calling my phone check, telling me to not hold back. Bring back that old set. Bet it up, I'm on. I'm going in one time. These record labels all in my face, trying to forfeit my race. But still I'm going in one time, no matter the opposition I face, staying true to my faith. I'm about to give them what they want, what they need.
Hey, yo. I like this truck right here. Oh, that's it, Cluck. I didn't see. I just is what I'm talking about. Hold it. Wait a minute. Excuse me. What have you heard about DB Cooper?
He's the guy who jumped out of the airplane, right?
Excuse me. Can you fly an airplane? By the way, Mr. Gates, tell me, are we gonna have to do another vaccine?
What they want, what they need, what they ask for.